me the Oracle from now on.
Triple M rocks footy.
Easter long weekend began with Charlie sending the Pies home down country roads, while Jack Higgins and co continue St Kilda's beast mode. Ollie Florent was celebrating while Charlie Curnow had the Blues fans salivating. The Demons look inspired and Jez is cleaning up umpires. A huge round 4 to sink our teeth into to look towards Gather Round in Adelaide on Triple M Footy's midweek rub.
I'm standing up.
Two-time All-Australian and Saints Hall of Famer Lee Montagna.
Rabsy, I've got a challenge for you now. I
Yes.
want some rap music behind that. I want you to read. I just want another version of it where you rap those lyrics because that was very, very impressive.
All right, we'll see what we can do with that. Fresh off hosting a slumber party, the People's Norm Smith medal winner Daisy Thomas.
Thank you, Rabbit. Yes, a touch tired, to be completely honest with you. But no doubt all the sugar that the kids and I have had this morning will see us through to at least lunchtime.
And the chairperson of the AFL Media Association, who never give Triple M any awards, Damien Barretts.
That's probably a fair sledge.
Why
Although
is
I don't
that?
have a say in how they're divvied up there, Rabsy. That was nice work again.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you,
very
mate.
It's almost
sharp,
too
mate.
much prep for a Triple M show.
Nah, well, I wrote it yesterday and then I went to a concert last night, so I'm a bit dusty. So I'm happy I got all the words out. So,
So why the slow start to the day?
a little bit of a slow
Good
start.
on whose concert? What concert?
The 1975 at Rod Laver Arena. Yeah, it was very good.
Good. There you go.
What's your favourite song of theirs, Joey?
I've never heard of them.
Is that like 1927, the band? Or?
Well, they've got numbers in the name, but no, I think that's all.
There we go.
How did we see round 4? Because there's a lot of talking points. There's Tribunal, there's the Saints 4-0, and the Freo. Like, where do we start, boys?
It feels like there's big news out of this round. Damo, sometimes you get a bit flat. There's not too big of a stories. I think this one was pretty big, wasn't there?
I feel every round has had some really
hasn't
big
it?
stories, yeah. It's been
They're
great.
emerging, and the ones that we throw forward to, obviously going into Gather Round, you couldn't have picked that Carlton and Adelaide opening the series of matches was going to have as much intrigue around it for the neutral follower, and equally and more pertinently, days Collingwood St Kilda, which is going to close the Gather Round off on the twilight fixture on Sunday. That's huge.
It's going to be massive. How good are the Crows going?
flying, aren't they?
They are
Yep.
playing a really attractive brand of footy. It's really good to watch.
And I'll tell you what, the Sunday twilight game, we've just touched on it off-air, Damo, that most of us are heading over to South Australia and we're all busy. We've got work and trying to get from venue to venue. And then, oh, Thomas, on the Sunday twilight, you're just going to be able to sit back and have a few beers and just watch the St Kilda Collingwood game as a fan. That's pretty lucky, very lucky.
I am lucky. So my commitments have been sorted for the Sunday night, which is all good. So we'll do the Sunday rub over there and then we'll just hang around, Rabsy and I.
Hey.
Look out.
Rabsy's sorted. So I was hoping we'd be behind the glass because I wasn't too keen to be out in the genuinely out there in Adelaide with everything that's going on. And that being
public.
gather
St
around.
Kilda fans will be respectful for you.
St Kilda fans hate me.
Adelaide
Still
supporters?
I've one of most of the Pies fans back home. So Rabsy sorted this area. There's couches involved.
What?
Oh.
It's going to be
Yeah,
brilliant.
the MTX Club at Adelaide Oval, which
Yeah.
is magnificent. So you sit out on a balcony with like all these couches and you get fed food and wine and yeah, it's going to be good fun.
I think it's meant to be bucketing rain, though.
It's undercover.
It's undercover. There you
Yeah.
go.
So
Lucky
big
you.
thanks to our friends at MTX
Well
Club.
done.
in
MTX
Adelaide.
Club, yeah. Thank you, Joe, very much.
What are we expecting, Damo, from Gather Round? There's going to be a fair bit going. What do you sort of make of it? Because I've been thinking about it now, thinking, is it maybe just more of a bit of the media are hyping it, we're all going to love it, but for the clubs, it's just another interstate trip. For 95% of fans, they're probably just going to be watching it on TV. Is it really more of a thing for the media? Have a little 4 or
Arguably,
5
yeah,
day.
but I think I was look. Maybe people will argue I was born a cynic and a skeptic, and that may be true. But and when this gather round was first mooted, I was a bit that way. Why are we doing it? And as it's got closer, I love the concept. I love it for a number of reasons. One, it rewards South Australia. Now, I felt when they started rotating grand finals through the COVID era, obviously Perth got one and the Gabba got the first one in Brisbane. But obviously Adelaide also was shut down. So they missed out on that. They get this. It's not as big as a grand final, but it's probably the next big thing in a footy concept. It's a new round. It's an added game. And the neutrality of some of these other games too. Some teams desperately need a win, and I think they'll be happy to play them in neutral venues as opposed to potentially being an away team.
The big question, Daisy, will there be a logistical nightmare somewhere out of this weekend?
they're-
Because there are double-up games
Yeah.
at the same venue and playing on some regional stadiums, and Norwood's got a brick wall across half the ground that the Fremantle Gold Coast game's at. Like, are you concerned that, there could be something that goes wrong?
I think something will go wrong at some point. There's just too many moving parts for that not to happen. But I think the AFL will have plan A, B, C, D ready to go when that is required. Hopefully all the broadcasters do as well, because there's so many moving parts to this, and the home ground advantages that are taken away becomes the interesting one.
Well, the fact that it's the extra game, though, I think mitigates some of that.
Yeah.
But you're right. In terms of the specifics of round 5.
Well, Geelong West
yeah.
Coast, they're going to give them a touch up anyway, but West Coast go traditionally down to Cardinia Park, GMHBA, and get wiped
Pants.
off. So no doubt they go to Adelaide Oval now, which is a bit bigger.
Yeah.
We'll see how that all goes. But I honestly can't wait, and maybe for that reason, Joey, because I do get to travel and then go have a night out on the back of it. But the whole festival of footy thing, I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and that's the big appeal, isn't it? For the look, we're obviously a Melbourne show, and the amount of and thousands of people that will be driving across. It's a drive across, and that's all exciting too,
And
isn't it?
five
for the
games
fans.
already sold out, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I'm hearing the South Australians are treating this like the Olympics. Like they are putting everything into it to make it a really big spectacle. So it should be good fun.
the mascots went through Bordertown yesterday.
Saw that Bernie Vince.
I wonder if he's going to nuff himself for that. But I did love the.
We've got it lined up.
He's hosting the mascots.
The mayor of Bordertown said people had cleaned up their front yards for when they came through. I loved it.
Very good.
Oh, fair Dinkum or Fugazi, and our gather round predictions still to come. But up next, it's Damo's news on Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. There's plenty of news kicking around Damo, and let's start last night with the Tribunal. McKay and Lynch both getting off. It's a hard word to say, Tribunal.
I think you mean the Tribunal.
Yes.
They did, and look, I was complimentary, unusually, for the whole operations
Positive
of the.
you were,
Yeah,
almost.
I was, and I had reason to be, I think, in Daisy, because the MRO, the Match Review Office, and the Tribunal had seemed to be in sync for the first three rounds. We then get the almost inevitable confusion and the mixed messaging out of last night. Personally, I didn't have a great matter of issue with both McKay and Lynch getting off. McKay being the late contact with Harry Sheasel, and Lynch being the in-football act moment of contacting Alex Keith. Just before I get your views on all of it, so McKay had his act on Sheasel on Friday of last week. We then wait until a Tuesday for him to take it to our tribunal. Now, had he failed last night, he would have had access to an appeals tribunal on a Wednesday night. He's playing in Adelaide on a Thursday this week. This whole tribunal system and how they, as of my view last night, are now not in sync with what the Match Review Office wants to do with certain incidents. And then I've long advocated, Joey, and you and I have had these conversations on and off air. To me, the tribunal's just got to go in its current form. The Match Review Office, the AFL edicted body under the AFL headquarters watch, needs to be the one, in my eyes, that determines what the outcome is. Not a part-time tribunal panel, and not one that is dominated by legal people who dare last night, in the case of the McKay case, throw up this smokescreen, the kick accuracy interference technique.
Yeah.
That's called arms on head of opponent. So.
Yeah, I agree now. I'm starting to think the tribunal, what its place is. I mean, I suppose you do need some sort of appeal mechanism or a place to challenge a decision?
Yeah, I agree with that, because that
current-
protects the game legally.
Yeah.
And that also prohibits the grand final week take it to the Supreme Court, which happened with Andrew Dunkley in 1996.
The current model is just really outdated, though.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're trying to sort of patch it up with an MRO and then goes. So if that's decided, like in the Lynch situation, then it goes back to the old school way of going to an actual tribunal where the footballing side of it loses all context in terms of legal mumbo jumbo.
And that's the case last night. I mean, I'm okay with the Harry McKay one getting off. I didn't think there was enough contact for that to be a week suspension. A fine was sufficed. The Tom Lynch one, you're right. It was a 50-50 decision. As I spoke, I think, on this show, there is a place where you need to brace for contact and instinctively protect yourself. But I thought off the back of Griffin Logue that if you didn't make a genuine play for the ball, that you couldn't then brace because that would count as a bump. But if you were making a play for the ball and at the same time protected yourself, that was where I thought you'd be fine. So that confused me now that he's got off, because now it's saying, are you allowed to not make a play for the ball, but at the last moment brace and protect yourself and take out an opponent?
Yep.
I think it's quite confusing. And when you think about the tribunal system, like you got to remember the panel that decided that are past players. So players that played in the 90s. You know, where's their sort of radar about what's happening with the game?
Well, they've got other jobs. They roll up on a Tuesday night.
How much footy have they been following? Do they understand how much conversation there's been about concussion and about what we're trying to stamp out? And because I felt we were getting consistency. I thought finally, and that's why I thought Tom Lynch would go off the back of it'll continue on a consistent theme that even if you brace for contact but don't make a play, we're going to protect the player that gets injured rather than maybe, let off a guy that might have been a bit unlucky for the sake of the game. Now it's back to being in a confusing situation.
The fact that it was 3 weeks or none, that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because, how can it be 3 weeks or so severe grading and sent straight
Ultimately,
through?
Daisy, look, the
Or
tribunal
something.
gets the capacity to hear it as a fresh case. So it could have made it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. I know what you're saying. It reached the threshold of 3 to get it to the tribunal, but they would have ultimately heard it fresh. And they could have determined their own sanction itself.
Even the inconsistencies of the Gary Rowan and Will Day tackles.
Yeah, I'm with
So
you with that.
watching
Yeah.
those and being at the game live,
Yep.
I thought Will Day's was far more of a footballing action. Tried
and
to
his
take
tackle
as
on
much,
Brad Close as opposed
to the Gary Rowan on
Giath.
Giath, where Giath had lost the ball and Gary then decided to go through with the tackle, smash him into the ground with his arms pinned.
Yeah.
At least Close had the ball. And again, there's 2 weeks v1.
And as we speak, we don't know what those clubs are doing with those potential movements toward the tribunal. But again, we're now on a Wednesday with a round of footy starting on a Thursday. It's just so unwieldy.
What's the solution going forward? Do we push for the AFL to take full ownership and a
to
full
me,
overhaul?
Michael Christian, I think this year's done a really good job as head of the match review office, but ultimately he's an independent person of the AFL. To me, it needs to be whoever the new Steve Hocking is, for that department to at least fully own and talk about and present to the public the decisions it makes. The game has to own the decision. To me, it can't allow an independent body, i.e. the tribunal, which it is set up to be, an independent body, to be the ultimate determinant on these matters.
Yeah, I like that. And then I like the idea then, as you said, after that person from the AFL then explains step by step why they've made the verdict and what their reasoning is and make it really clear so that everyone else, all of us supporters can go, I can see where they're coming from or make sense of it.
And then you could almost see when it's happening on game day, go, well, there's probably 2 weeks because we've seen A, B, C, and D get the exact same.
And then the next step, ban the lawyers. Now we move on. Gather round we touched on before. Look, there's a strong belief now. Collie Rogers, whose idea it was at the AFL, the senior executive there, to take it to Adelaide this year. Commitment now to make it an annual event. I'd imagine Queensland's going to be in the race for it next year. New South Wales, I'd imagine too, although Peter Volandi's control of that state and maybe the thinking of the sports bodies up there may have a say in that. But yeah, Queensland might.
Do Perth have any interest? Beautiful
I'd
wine
imagine they
regions
would.
over there as well.
I'd imagine they would. The geographical aspect of it. I mean, they could not have done a better job, as we know, in 2021 with the finals series and saving the back half of the AFL season.
I'm hearing, is there a chance that it could be Adelaide again next year? They keep it at the same
God,
state?
I hadn't contemplated that. I don't know whether the novelty value that there is this year would obviously then allow.
Okay.
But it might be such a success and people having the great experience, which I think they were almost guaranteed to have, that it could.
So we heard initially Gil McLachlan was going to look to announce his resignation at around this time. We're now around this time, and what's the latest?
Oh, well, it's now 12 months since he announced publicly he wasn't going to be the AFL CEO, and he still is.
John Farnham tour.
My take on this is a lot of work still needs to be done by way of getting money out of the federal government on the Tasmanian project. It's basically become his baby. It's the AFL's baby in terms of a project, but it's Gil's personally, and I think that they want him to get to the end game. Now, the budget, in a federal budget sense, comes out next month. That will be when the monies attached to it from the federal government perspective are released, and clearly there's brokering going on.
Is it still as certain as what? Looked at one stage, it was a 90% almost done deal. Is it still that way, or is it now just the silence is just a little bit concerning?
There's a good degree of confidence still, Joey, but the amounts of money are going to be the issue, and the political attachments to that money, and what causes are going to miss out as a result of federal government money going to a sports cause. So
what are we asking for? How many million?
Well,
700.
Yeah, and all I'll say there, if they're saying the stadium's going to cost $750 million, you could almost automatically double that number. Whatever public number they go with, you can double it because
just ask anyone trying to renovate. Anyone trying to renovate their house.
Yeah, and they won't get that amount from the first batch of federal government funding either, which again will pose more problems and questions.
Interesting. Lastly, you've been big about the 100 goal kickers. I know you did a piece at the start of the year. Was it this year? With all the 100 goal kickers in history?
Yeah, the Centurions project on AFL.com.au. And there's only 21 living who've kicked the 100 goals, 28 in total, Days. Are we going to get a chance this year with Curnow and Cameron, and particularly Cameron now tracking at 4.5? The extra game days gives them 23 games. Do the maths on that. It almost gets them there. And if they play 3 finals.
Calculator.
23 times 492.
Good. Very good. You've obviously done the maths before this. I hope so. I hope they can get there.
Yeah.
And whether or not it is in the regular season or if it takes until finals.
It doesn't matter.
Imagine that. Grand final day, Jeremy Cameron lining up for 100.
Who's more likely, Jeremy Cameron or Charlie Curnow?
I would say Jeremy Cameron, just because he doesn't get injured. Then touch wood, that doesn't happen again. He's had a few hammies, but Charlie's sort of still finding his way back. I want to see the consistency, and hopefully, again, I don't want to moz anyone, but I'd be happy if they both kicked 100.
Who do you reckon?
If it's more likely, probably Jeremy Cameron as well. I think it's maybe a bit fanciful this year. I think to see someone kick 80-plus goals would be a great result. I mean, I just had a look. In the last 13 years, we only had one forward kick 80 goals. That was Josh Kennedy in 2016. You have to go back to Fev in 2009. So I think the 80-goal mark is absolutely achievable, and it probably will be both of those two boys if they continue their form.
Both seeing full forwards at full flight kicking 6 goals on a Friday than a Sunday or a Monday it was. Yeah. It's just good. It's really good for footy to see that the big men are back.
Before we move on, Damo, is there an update on Paddy McCartin from the Swans?
No update in terms of what happens here, Rabsy. It's going to be a weeks-long process before we get any form of clarity around it. The experts are getting involved, and from a footy perspective, and people don't like us speculating, but it's what we do. It's line ball that he plays again in my eyes. Now, the experts can make the decision and how that looks, but the litigation component to all of this is a layer of it, and it's a significant layer of it.
Yeah, the most important factor is Paddy McCartin's health and his future, and it's going to be a massive decision. And as you said, there are a lot of people that will be involved in the decision-making from his camp, from the AFL and from everyone else involved. So I think they need to take their time, and it is a huge call for the
game,
for the game, and for Paddy McCartin's future and what that looks like for the next 50 years of his life.
Yep.
So for those just joining us, fair dinkum or Fugazi, I ask the boys a question. They say, yes, that's fair dinkum, or they say, no, that's Fugazi. So, Damo, I'm going to start with you because I can't ask Joey this question because his involvement with the club. But Freo's season is officially in crisis mode.
That is fair dinkum. I still will be holding firm on their ability to make finals, Rabsy, but if you're asking me after round 4 where it's at, that's a fair dinkum issue for them. They just have not provided the excitement that I thought they would. In fact, they've become very boring, and their only win coming against a injury-smashed West Coast. It's a worry. There's no excitement to that club, and I'm not convinced they're going to work their way through it as we speak.
I'm with you on the fair dinkumness of this. They've got to win this week against the Gold Coast Suns. Becomes the biggest game of their season. And then next week they come up against the Western Bulldogs. So if they don't get this win, they are in trouble.
Yeah, well, as you said, Damo, they beat West Coast, but St Kilda, they would have thought they'd win that one. And then North Melbourne, they would have put that down as well. So to be 1-3 at the start of the year, it's pretty disappointing.
And if West Coast were fully fit, it could have been zip and 4.
Yep,
100%. Yeah. Daisy, North Melbourne and Carlton are the two Good Friday teams going forward.
Fugazi? I'm not sure about North Melbourne getting the blockbuster. I love it.
Hey,
get off
the
their
question's not
back.
about North and Carlton. Is Carlton going to stay there?
Oh, are we concerned about Carlton? I'm happily to see it rotate whichever way it goes. There you go. That covers me tracks on bagging
As
out
in
North.
rotate against North Melbourne?
No, just rotate in general. Offer it to other clubs that don't get big blockbuster games.
It's North's game, Daisy.
Has to be.
Well, that's what it's been to this point. And finally, I think to Rabsy's question, it's worked. It's whether you think that Carlton needs to be
the
locked
fans
in.
voted with their feet, so I'll change it. I'll say Fugazi.
Cool.
They should be able to stay.
Good one. Sounded like someone who's
there.
sounded like someone who's played for Carlton and Collingwood and just thinks about the big clubs.
That was it.
Joey, it's a concern for the Giants that Adam Kingsley had to resort to a 3/4 time spray in round 4.
No, that's Fugazi. Yeah, you're still allowed to give your team a spray when they've had a really poor quarter, and they had a bad quarter from an effort point of view. Of course, you don't want to be giving a spray every single week. It loses its...
How many have you got in a year? Because I've heard this theory before. You might have 3.
There's no real number, is there? It could be. No, some coaches give a bit more. Some could give 6 or 8. But it's got to make sure when you do it, it counts and it means something. Because if you do it too often, it loses all its appeal. It's like me as a dad yelling at my kids. If I just they're going to start tuning out soon. So you pick and choose your battles.
They didn't come out and fire a shot.
No,
so
they
didn't.
So
that was the problem.
That's one bullet that didn't work. Yeah.
Joey, Callum Mills celebrating too early possibly cost Sydney the win against Port Adelaide.
Well, hang on, possibly, or it did?
No, it did.
No, well, that's Fugazi. I don't think it did cost him the win, but it could have made a difference if he had have just maybe laid a little shepherd and didn't allow Aliir the run and jump. So I think absolutely that the Sydney Swans players that were there would have liked their time back, but it did look like it was going through. They all thought it was, and that wind. When you actually watch the replay, I heard them talk. Travis Boak talk about it last night. The ball actually does really pull up late and dip. So unfortunately, they mucked that one up.
Damo, the Triple M team will break the world record for Cashies in gather round.
Well, if they don't, there's something wrong because it's set up for them on a platter. And I think our man Billy Brownless might do it single-handedly anyway. So, yeah.
He's doing a Cashy in between arriving in Adelaide and doing the rush hour at 3 o'clock.
He's the best.
He's doing a walkthrough of the airport. For the Cashies.
I think he is, Mal Meninga style. Daisy, if Ben McKay returns this week, those brothers are officially taking the piss.
Yeah, that's fair dinkum. The fact that he was out for 2 months or more going to be with a foot, and then miraculously after he plays his brother's team, he's back and looked like he was dominating. Saw a vision of him at training. Could have played last week.
8 years it's been.
No,
8 years they have not played against each other.
Piss take. I don't know what it is. I actually want to see it because brothers hate each other. If they actually played on each other, should almost go to the tribunal and say, look, whatever happens, just leave them alone. If they punch the suitcases out of each other, real backyard rules, and go for
Just
it.
picture it. It would look really funny having twins playing on each other, wouldn't it? Like, it would look really weird.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see it. Just don't know when it'll happen.
Smoking shadows behind the windows, you reckon?
Real
Travis
Travis
Cloak
Cloak
stuff. Joey, now I want to see the beads of sweat now. After St Kilda starting 4-0, they are a lock for finals.
A lock. Gee, that's a good one. Well, they're not a lock.
Oh, that's a big call.
They're not
So
a
it's
lock.
Fugazi
But
then.
they would be. So it's a Fugazi.
It's a
It's
Fugazi.
Fugazi. They're not a lock.
It's a Fugazi after
They
round 4.
would be. I think Saints supporters now would be very disappointed if they didn't make finals from here. 4 and zip. You've only got to win 10 of your last 19 to make 14 wins will get you in.
But they only needed to win 4 of their last 11 last year.
No,
and
different year last year.
Yes,
No,
but I'm
you're
looking
going
back.
back.
It's the
Last
most
year.
recent.
They were very inconsistent last year. This year
They
played
weren't
with
at
a
8-3.
consistency. Yes,
They
they
weren't
were.
at
Yes, they were.
They're
They were
8-3.
playing. They were playing inconsistent footy.
Okay.
They won a game against Geelong off the back of one quarter. We won't get into it, but then Adelaide, they got lucky on a win.
Long
So
memory.
there was writing on the wall before the 8-3. This year they're playing number 1 defence in the comp. Hold you in good stead. They'd be disappointed if they don't play.
He's getting
finals.
excited. Look at him.
Yeah.
He's,
The finals back on the radar for sure.
We'll get the digital boys to put up a tile. Joey says they're a lock for finals.
I'll get a call from Rossi.
Yeah. And,
Joey, keep a lid on it.
and finally, Daisy, hosting a kid's sleepover party is the worst thing a parent can do.
Not the worst thing, but it's bloody tough. It is. Yeah. So that's fair dinkum.
Were you solo?
Solo.
Yeah.
So and decided to go to the movies as well. So that
How
was
many?
There was 3 of them.
3.
Yeah.
That's enough. All under the age of 8? Or
Yeah,
8 or,
8 or below. So 4 o'clock this morning, I heard people talking. This is unusual. Wandered down the hallway, and yep, they're all up and sprightly. Flicked the light off and back to sleep. Please. So, so if I'm not at my best today, that's why.
That's all right. A gather round predictions coming up next. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub, Joey, Daisy and Damo. Ahead of gather round, kicking off tomorrow night. We've got to get your predictions for round 5. But before that, Joey, let's cast our mind back to round 4 and get some of your predictions. You tipped St Kilda.
Yes, morals.
Absolute morals. This is Damo's certainty.
I'm going to go for, I like what Adelaide's doing, but I'm going to go for Fremantle in the away capacity in that particular game. I still feel there's a lot to offer from the Dockers' perspective this year, and I like their backline, and I reckon they'll be able to work its way through the myriad of problems there from a forward's perspective.
Find the right matchup for Rankin. That's the key. Didn't do any of that. Didn't
About
do
10
any of
minutes
that.
in, that was null and void, wasn't it, that comment?
And then he returned.
I'm pretty confident. I'm not going to take the low-lying fruit here. I'm going to put them on the line. I think Carlton will smack North Melbourne.
Oh, it's sort of low.
Daisy Thomas is the Oracle.
He's back in town. He's back
He was
in
down
town.
on confidence to go with that one just to get something back.
Sometimes you need to go the 2s and have 37 and kick 3 just before your next coach gets sacked to get back into form.
It was a tight first half.
Yeah, I know. A pulsating sphincter. Like, surely they couldn't.
So round 5, as you said, Damo, kicks off tomorrow night. It's a huge game. Adelaide versus Carlton at Adelaide Oval. This is going to be massive.
It's a beauty. Adelaide are a great team to watch. They are playing some exciting football.
Particularly at Adelaide Oval.
At Adelaide Oval. If they break even in the midfield against Carlton, they are going to score because their forward line is absolutely potent and their defence is underrated. So Nick Murray, not many people would know of as it actually started the year in really good form. So good luck to him. Probably on Harry McKay. But I think Adelaide, absolutely, this is a 50-50 game. I'll probably tip Carlton on a bit more faith, but Adelaide, I think, are a terrific team.
I'm going for the Blues, and I know there's been some question marks as to what they've done and the narrow either wins or draw as they had in round 1 going against them by way of some narrative, but I like how they've just set themselves up. I feel it's been a long plan and a build into the season plan, and I reckon we might get to see it go into explosion mode tomorrow night.
Sam Walsh going to play, we believe. So Sammy
and
Walsh.
again, as we talk,
Yeah,
that is the plan.
Kennedy
that is what I'm excited
Kennedy and
about.
Akers as well. So, yeah, some big wins.
Their midfield bat's so deep now, the Blues, and I can't wait to see Sammy Walsh back out there. Fingers crossed that he has a really good run at it from here on out.
No Sam Doherty. I just wonder whether they ease Sam Walsh back at a halfback flank. Just get him a little bit of confidence, give him the ball.
Yeah.
No? Okay. Just thought of that then.
Yeah, I didn't mind it, but
No.
The first of the Friday doubleheaders, Freo Gold Coast. By the way, this kicks off at 3:10 Perth time.
Yeah, the good traditional time slot. 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Not many people will be watching this one.
They'll be listening to
They're
it.
going to be at
Yes.
work, but they'll listen on the radio. I think Freo are morals in this one. Freo season on the line. They will definitely beat the Gold Coast.
morals.
Yeah.
I think so too. Sydney,
Load
Richmond's
the truck or whatever you say, Daisy.
Back the truck
Back
up.
the truck up.
Yeah.
Richmond Sydney's got a lot of intrigue given the lack of available talent for both clubs. Obviously, the two McCartins out for the Sydney Swans. Buddy Franklin doing a knee. He's out. That might be a positive in the scheme of their season with Amadi and McDonald now having that forward line to themselves. Lynch, Nankervis, Graham all going down last week. I think it's a game the Swans are just going to win and win quite easily.
I'm going to put Richmond down as my smoky this week. Just an upset. I don't know. Backs against the wall sort of stuff. Dimmer has a way of finding the best out of them. Sometimes we've seen, and with St Kilda especially, when you give these blokes opportunity that have been scrapping away in the twos, they can really find a bit and produce something different than what you've seen in previous weeks with the first pick side. So Richmond are my smoky for this week.
Brisbane, North Melbourne. Can we see North Melbourne, taking it up to the Lions at Mount Barker?
No.
Yeah, I can see them being competitive. Absolutely. Yeah, where they've got the class to get over the line. But no, North are a better team than people give them credit for. Yep.
Essendon, Melbourne, that could be a very exciting game, particularly with the Bombers' form from last weekend.
Yeah, not sure about the Bombers' form. That was if that was a race, a horse race, you'd be like that was a pretty ordinary
It was a
form
benchmark
race. Yeah,
7
it was
for-
the Giants and Essendon were both pretty ordinary in that game. So Melbourne will win that one.
I think Melbourne will win by a comfortable margin
Yeah,
too. When they're going, 115 points in their 3 wins.
Yeah, they're
They're
firing.
potent.
Port B Bulldogs.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a 50-50 game. The Bulldogs could easily win this. I saw the market. Port are pretty short in the market.
So very short.
Very
Yeah.
short. So Bulldogs for me are the smoky to win as the outsider. Yeah, absolutely.
Port on their home patch. Gather around, please. They just get it done.
Geelong versus West Coast. We'll give them a 60-point start. They probably still won't get there. So the Giants versus Hawthorn. What are we thinking there?
Oh,
Well,
It's a winnable game for the Hawks.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think Giants should absolutely win.
geez, they've been disappointing. The
Yeah, they
Giants.
have a bit. Yeah.
But when you actually go through the talent that's still on the list, we talk a lot about what's gone. There's still so much talent on that list for what they're putting out. They should beat Essendon,
Yeah.
all things equal.
And then we get to the main one when it's all said and done of the round, Collingwood v St Kilda.
Why not St Kilda? Why not? They're playing well enough that all the numbers stack up. They're full of confidence. They're playing for one another and with system and playing for the coach. Obviously going to be hard to beat the rampaging Pies, but I give them a big chance.
Collingwood are my certainties for the week.
Hey!
They make a statement here
Okay.
against the Saints.
And I'm going to follow you in there with my certainties
Yes.
to reality check for St Kilda.
Yeah, love it.
Reality check.
Yeah, I like that too. Big words.
Damo called that game the biggest of the season on the rush hour
If the Saints
yesterday.
win that, I will declare them as a lock for finals next week.
Ooh.
If the Saints win.
There's
There you
your
go.
tile, digital boys.
If they win.
Well, it all kicks off tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, live from Adelaide Oval, of course, across Gather Round. You can hear every single game live on the Listener app and on Triple M. Kicks off tomorrow night with JB, BT, Mark Rasciuto, Bernie Vince, Rhett Biglands, and Ethan Meldrum. This has been Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub with Joey, Daisy, and Damo.
What a motley crew.